Have you ever really stopped to think about how we learn to understand language? I mean, it's something most of us just do, but it's actually one of the most incredible foundational things our brain ever learns. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the science behind it.
So let me ask you this. What do you think is the very first, most critical step to speaking any language? Go ahead, think of an answer. I'm willing to bet it's probably not what you're thinking.
Because the answer? It's not speaking. Nope, it's understanding. See, long before we ever say our first word, our brain has to learn how to listen, how to process, and how to make sense of all the sounds coming its way. That right there is the foundation for everything else.
Now, this skill of understanding, it has a name. It's called receptive language. So let's dive into what that really means. Simply put, receptive language is just the ability to hear what someone says and respond the right way. You know, when a parent says, "Go get your shoes," and the kid actually goes and gets them, that's receptive language in action. It's all about taking language in, not putting it out.
And this is so important, because when those receptive language skills don't develop smoothly, it can set off this whole domino effect, holding back a child's ability to learn and eventually to speak for themselves.
So, how do we teach this the right way? Well, it all starts by setting the stage for success before the lesson even begins. Okay, so the single biggest hurdle instructors run into has this really technical sounding name, faulty stimulus control. But don't worry, it boils down to a really simple idea. The learner is accidentally picking up on the wrong clue. They get the right answer, but for totally the wrong reason.
Let's walk through a perfect example of how this can happen. Imagine an instructor is trying to teach a child body parts. They give a nice, clear instruction, touch your nose.
But, as they say it, their own hand makes this tiny, almost invisible little movement toward their own nose. The child sees that movement, and that's the cue they follow. They touch their nose, they get a great job, but here's the thing. They didn't actually learn the word nose. They just learned to copy a subtle gesture. The researchers call this false mastery, and it's a huge pitfall.
And it's so easy to do this without realizing it. Just looking at the correct object for a split second, a little head nod, or even the way your voice changes when you say the right word, a learner can pick up on all of these patterns instead of the words themselves. They become little detectives, solving the puzzle without ever learning the language. And that brings us to our first huge takeaway from the research. You have to make sure the learner is paying attention to the right thing. They call this requiring an observing response. Basically, it just means you get the learner to look at the different choices before you even say the instruction. It's all about directing their focus right where it needs to be from the very start.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, how do we actually design a lesson that avoids all these traps?
The research gives us 3 simple but really powerful keys to a strong lesson plan. 1. Keep your instructions short and sweet. 2. Teach a few new things at the same time. And 3, always mix up the order and the position of the items.
So why the short instructions? Well, think about it. If you say, show me red, then show me blue, then show me green, that show me part just becomes background noise. The learner might even start to respond before they hear the most important word. But if you just say red, all of their attention is on that one critical word.
And why mix it all up? To stop something called a side bias. It's super common. If a learner figures out the correct answer is often on the right, they can get it right half the time just by guessing. So, to fix that, we use a technique called counterbalancing. And here's exactly what that looks like. This data sheet is from the actual study. See how the target word, the one in bold, gets moved around? Over the course of the whole lesson, every single item shows up in every single position. It makes it impossible to just guess a location. You actually have to listen. All right, so our lesson is designed perfectly. Now, how do we guide and motivate the learner while we're in the thick of it? That's what we're talking about in Section 4.
A really powerful strategy here is something called differential reinforcement. The idea is brilliant and simple. Make the reward match the effort. If the learner gets the answer right all by themselves, they get the big prize, their favorite toy, a huge round of applause, the works. But if they needed a little help, they still get encouragement, just something smaller, like a calm, simple, good job. It's a fantastic way to motivate them to be independent.
But hey, let's be real. Even with the best plan in the world, things can sometimes go off the rails. Our last section is all about how to spot those problems and fix them.
So what are the red flags to watch for? Well, here are a few big ones. Is the learner jumping in with an answer before you've even finished the sentence? Do they always have to look back at you for some kind of cue before they point? Or have they started just picking the item on the left every single time? These are all telltale signs that the wrong clue has taken over.
But here's the good news. The research gives us a really clear troubleshooting guide. There are practical, easy solutions. For that side bias we just talked about, the fix is to just add more items. Think about it. Guessing between 2 items gives you a 50-50 shot. But guessing between 4? Your odds just drop to 25%. It forces the learner to stop guessing and start listening.
And this all leads to the final and maybe most important point from the study's conclusion. I'm going to read this quote directly because it's that crucial. It says, "If a learner establishes shortcuts or repertoires based on faulty stimulus control, the learner's progress in other areas may be undermined." So this isn't just about one little lesson. This is about building a strong foundation for all the learning that's yet to come.
And in the end, all of this research leaves us with one really powerful question to ask ourselves. And it applies whether you're a teacher, a parent, or really just anyone trying to communicate clearly. Are we actually teaching what we think we're teaching? Thanks so much for diving into this with me today.